Hey guys, Joe with BitRaged here. So I was trading last night and I noticed this trade developing, and there's a lot of interesting things that happened and developed in this run. So I wanted to show you some of those and give you an idea of what you can look for. Maybe you bought in down here, let's say you followed this down, you did your research right, and you bought in way down here, and you're trying to follow this up and you're trying to decide where the top is. Obviously this wasn't the top, so why wasn't that the top? Why didn't it go down from here? Why did it continue? Is there some indicators we can use that will allow us to detect market change and continuation in a trend? So the first thing I would do, if you're following this down, you see this plummet and you're following this down, the first thing I would do is move to a 1 hour or a 2 hour chart. Let's move to a 1 hour chart so we can see it better. What I would do is I would take a look at where this has fallen to. So I would take, if you have a charting software like this, I would take and draw a line all the way over as far as you can go. And that gives you an idea of where the support is for this. So say you're following this down and you see this here. Okay, well you can say, well, we've got some support here. We've got some support in here. We come over, we've got some support here. It broke through this support. So we can deduce from that that it's going to fall a little bit more. And it did. So if we draw a line, we can come over and see we've got some support here, some support here, we've got some support in here, got some in here. And you can see we've got some strong support for this to break out from here. Now it could break through here and keep going, in which case you'd then just base it off whatever support levels you have left. Just give you a good idea of where it's going. But so let's say you did your research right, you decided it was going to fall to here, and you bought in pretty close to the bottom. Let's say you bought in here. And then you're following this up and you're trying to decide, well, where's the top? Where do I sell off? And a lot of people ask the question, where do I sell? Really the simple answer to that is if you're in profit, you can go ahead and sell. You're doing it right. But if you want to maximize your profit, you can take a look at some of the signals and the indicators that the chart gives you and then make a more educated decision. For example, we followed up to here and then we see a pullback. So this here is actually a signal. So it's called a flag. You may be able to tell why they call it a flag. Basically all it signifies is consolidation and a market rest, a market break from this bull run. And it indicates that the run is going to continue. And that's exactly what happened. So how can you detect a pattern like this? Well, it's going to look very similar to this. It's going to start at the top here. It's going to drop down a little bit, but then it's going to consolidate. So you're going to see a level of support, okay? And then it's going to drop down. So you're going to see a downward trend for a little bit, and then it's going to pick back up. So this here is a good example of a flag. And it indicates that the market is going to keep going. So if you bought in down here, and you're following this up, you see this happen, and then you see these candles develop. Okay, now we see a flag here. So you could sell here, make some profit, but if you see this developing, this indicates that it's going to continue, and you can get a little more out of this. Now, this also indicates a place to buy. Let's say you missed the boat here, but you see it do this, and it forms this flag. Well, you can either buy down here, or you can wait and buy when it starts to break out here. In either case, it's going to continue the run and you'll make profit. So that's a good indication. It's called a flag pattern. It signifies that the market is taking a break, but it's going to continue. So let's look at what happened from there. So it went up to 917 or so, dropped back down, and then saw a little bit of a bounce. This support level here was set, saw some bounce, came back down, bounced back up off this support level, and then it did this. And This is, again, it's forming kind of a flag pattern. It's not exact, it's not perfect, but what's more important though than the pattern is the candles that is drawn here. So we see here, this candle right here. This candle is a hanging man. They call it a hanging man. And essentially it indicates a bearish direction in the chart. It indicates that the price is going to fall off. It did. The price fell off from here, came down to here. But what happened after that changed the direction. So we see all three of these candles go up to here and down to here. And you see in the volume down here, the volume is building. Volume is building, but nothing is happening. So what's going on is there is a lot of support down here for this price and a lot of resistance. The market is rejecting a price lower than this and rejecting a price higher than this. So basically what that indicates to you is that this is not sustainable. You can't have building volume and a price that's not changing. So it's going to either break out or crash. In this case it broke out, and it broke out because of this run here, and the pullbacks off this run have not been substantial. So because the sell-offs were not that substantial, it gave the buyers an indication that it's still running strong. These sell-offs, it's not that strong. So it's still running. And we saw this spike. And this spike is because there are a lot of people reading this chart and they're looking at this. They're seeing this unsustainable pattern. And the buyers are determining that because it only dropped this much and this much, those aren't substantial sells. So there's more to get out of this run. And so the buy orders pick up, volume comes in, comes way up, and we see a big spike. So this was all evidenced in these three candles, and one of the important things to realize here is this candle here. That candle is a spinning top. It's called a spinning top, and essentially what it signifies and what it indicates to you is that there is a balance. There is a lot of support for this price and a lot of resistance. There are a lot of people that think it should be sold off, and there are a lot of people that think it should be bought up. And because there is this kind of disagreement, you're going to see some sort of price action. You're going to see some sort of trend happen. And in this case, it continued. It continued because the sell-offs were not that substantial, and the buyers figured we had more potential out of this run, in which case we did. So those are some things you can look at. So the first thing is a flag pattern. The other thing you can look at is what's called a pennant. You have here a flagpole, and then it rises up, comes down here, consolidates, drops off, and usually during this pattern volume will drop off as well and then get picked back up here. So if you see this kind of a pattern, it's a good indication that this run is going to continue. So the other thing you can look at and look for is what's called a stair-step pattern or a side step. And basically what that is it's a pattern that moves sideways. So here's an example. This isn't perfect, but it gives you sort of an example to illustrate this. So you can see we had a move up, and then the market kind of moved sideways, and you can see this a little better on, let's say, a 1 hour chart. Yeah, so here's a 1 hour chart. The market moved sideways for a bit. This is a good indication that this run here is just taking a break. It's just resting. It's not going to plummet, it's going to continue, and that's what happened. So that's a good indicator to use as well. So if you see a market that is moving sideways right after a bull run or a uptrend, it's a good indication that it's going to continue to rise. Same thing with a flag pattern. If you see this kind of a pattern, it's a good indication that the price is going to continue to rise. And again, if you see this kind of a pattern, if you see a spinning top and you see support is clearly defined here, resistance is clearly defined, volume is building, but nothing is happening, something's going to happen to this price. In context, it indicates that it's going to continue. You're going to see a spike, and that's what happened. So those are some things that you can look for, and you can look at a chart to indicate a trend continuing. So if you're buying in and you're trying to figure out, well, how far is this trend going to run? Is it going to drop on me? Well, you can look for these trends. It gives you a good idea of where the price is going. Now, for most people, they would see a spike like this up to here, an indication that they need to sell, which is fine. You buy down here, you sell up here, you're making pretty good profit. You're doing it right. But if you ride this and you see these patterns, you identify them, you can get more out of it. Again, same thing here. Most people would probably sell up here, especially after seeing this drop. But if you just realize what's going on and you identify the patterns, you can get a lot out of a run like this. The other thing I wanted to mention before we end this is when you see a big spike like this, a big run, the first pullback is going to be your time to buy. So if you bought in here and you identified this correctly and you sold, let's say you sold up here because you figured that's all it's got. Then you see this developing and this spikes and you didn't get in down here. You see the first pullback, this is where you would buy in. Because as you can see, we went back up and we met this price here. So that's a good safe spot to buy. The first pullback after a major run is usually pretty safe to buy. Anyways guys, that's going to do it for this video. I just saw this as interesting when I was trading last night and I want to bring it to you, give you guys some ideas on what you can look for when you're trying to decide if a trend's going to continue so you can get the most out of your trades. If you want to see more videos like this, go ahead and subscribe. If you have an idea for a video, leave that in the comments. We'll do our best to get those videos out to you. We appreciate you guys watching. Take care.